So we've learned a decent bit about Black Ops 6 since the beta concluded, but today, with that information handy, I wanted to take a deep dive into the weapons and weapon systems coming in multiplayer of Black Ops 6, recapping a bit of everything all in one place, and pointing out a few things that you may have missed since the end of the beta. We're talking weaponry as a whole, new features, changes, unlocks, and more, so drop your thoughts as we go along, drop a like if you enjoy the video, and make sure to subscribe if you're new to the channel. We're chasing down 600,000 subscribers, and it's a mega lofty goal, but I'd love to see if we could get close to that, or maybe even hit it by the time the game launches. We're still a ways off, but hey man, lofty goals are always fun. So if you're part of that nearly 75% of viewers not subscribed, I'd love to have you in the community to keep you in the loop with everything as we gear up for launch. But anyways, let's get into it. So firstly, let's talk about weapons overall. Obviously, we saw a lot of weapons here out of the beta, but that's not the full listing. From the get-go, it was mentioned that of the weaponry we'll have within Black Ops 6, 12 weapons have never been seen in COD history before. So brand new weapons into the franchise, which is pretty cool. But so far, out of what we saw in the beta, we saw the Ames 85, XM4, AK-74, C9, Jackal PDW, Tonto 22, Marine SP, XM4, SWAT 556, DM10, SVD, LR762, GS45, 9mm PM, the Sigma 45, and the combat knife. But while that was all that was showcased in the beta, we also know of a couple of different weapons that we saw from Zombies gameplay that's been released, different trailers and campaign footage, things like the PP90, the KSB-58, the AS-VAL, the USAS-12, the SR-3 Vickr, and the FMA AE SAF. Those were all seen in gameplay. Now, those likely will not be the actual names that we see in-game. Obviously, what we already listed off is what we saw in the beta. Those have real-world counterparts that those aren't the actual names. So same thing is probably going to happen here just for licensing or whatever reason. The last couple of years of Call of Duty, they've really stayed away from having direct matches of names. So don't expect that, but just for reference, those are what you can expect to see compared to their real life counterparts. That's all that we've seen visually speaking. There was a much more exhaustive list leaked a little while ago that we've talked about before, but some of those weapons could honestly mirror so closely to subtle variations of their real life counterparts that it could just be something like a gunsmith variation. So those are the weapons we know are going to be coming here within Black Ops 6. What else is on the horizon? I'm not expecting just like 25 weapons or something like that. I would expect another 15, 20 more weapons on the table still, but we'll see how that breaks down. But in terms of features surrounding these weapons, one thing that we didn't quite get around to talking about too much in long-form content, though we did mention it in a short that you might have missed, operator mods are kind of returning via attachments here. During the beta, Matt Schranz, associate design director at Treyarch, ended up saying, "We've got some fun stuff planned inspired by operator mods built into Gunsmith and attachments." Now, if you ended up seeing it, the XMG was a weapon that had like the crossbar attachment, which was the operator mod for the Hades in Black Ops 4. So that could go a number of different ways, but I'm curious to see if each weapon will have some sort of unique attachment associated with its leveling that maybe it rivals that of some operator mods that we've seen in the past. Global weapon builds are also something that the more I hear about it, the more I'm curious to see if this is a feature that people will enjoy, or if it's going to be something that completely goes by the wayside and it's kind of like a useless innovation. But global weapon builds seem to be real-time and live changes that can be made to your weapons across all the different modes. So what makes sense out of this is that, let's just say right now you can have a custom blueprint out of your weapons. You can save it and use it and then quick equip it out of multiplayer, Warzone, or Zombies. You can end up putting it there and it will apply that saved blueprint. Now, where this would then differ with global weapon builds is that if you changed one aspect of that build out of just the saved blueprint, like an optic, let's say, in multiplayer, on that blueprint, you won't have those effects immediately equipped in Warzone if you have that, say, saved on a specific loadout. But with global weapon builds, that saved custom blueprint, if you want to call it that, will act as a universal and live build so that if you change that optic on the custom blueprint in multiplayer, that change will also be applied at the same time to whatever loadout you have that equipped to within Warzone, just being a complete one-to-one parity between modes. So offering a bit more in terms of ease of access per se, but will it be something that completely just gets rid of custom blueprints altogether and this is just replacing that system? We don't quite know because, I mean, on one hand, custom blueprints and that ability to not directly change whatever you want across all your other applications of the weapon save could be beneficial. Like if I want to take a build for something that is more so big map suited, I might have a different optic than if I wanted to, say, take it for multiplayer or like Resurgence. I might just put a regular red dot or a lesser zoom optic versus like a 4x maybe. So we'll have to wait and see, but that's how global weapon builds builds will work within Black Ops 6. Now, we also did learn about some weapon changes here out of the change blog that detailed Black Ops 6's beta to where launch will be and some of the stuff coming along there. Headshot multipliers was something that was on the chopping block, where it was a big point of debate in the beta, where some players maybe said too rewarding, maybe they said it wasn't rewarding enough. And honestly, I'd probably say that it's the latter, where it's not rewarding enough, and it seemed like that Treyarch agreed, where they stated in that blog post, "We are so excited to see our new weapons in the hands of players throughout the beta and are grateful to have plenty of data and feedback to process as we look forward to balance updates for launch." A common piece of feedback we saw was that the low headshot damage reduced the impact of skillful play and made it difficult to challenge certain power positions. We agree with those points and are working on adjustments to many weapons to reward players who land multiple headshots during an engagement. That said, we do not want a hit location multiplier to significantly affect the consistency of time to kill in Black Ops 6, so we will continue to monitor the effectiveness of headshots during launch and beyond. So we are going to see some adjustments here, some buffs to those headshot multipliers, increasing those values a little bit, but by how much is the big question, because when you're working with specific values that can either round a weapon 1 to 2 bullets less in that time to kill, it's certainly a fine balance to try and get it to be a fair damage multiplier, but also not outclass other weapons entirely. So definitely not something that I envy in trying to have to make those balances, but it's definitely something that's a tall task, no less. Bullet penetration standards are also stuff that is going to be adjusted with the weapons come launch, where bullet penetration seems to be getting lowered a bit. It was stated bullet penetration is another system that we will be improving for launch. In general, players should notice fewer extreme cases of bullets doing far too much damage through certain surfaces, aka a wallbang, while also not penetrating as expected through other surfaces. They mentioned the radar dish on Scud, for example, for that. So definitely going to be curious to see how this interacts and what sort of surfaces are changed more drastically than others. I didn't notice too many issues of bullet penetration being a little bit too excessive, but also I'm sure it was an issue that a lot of players did have. Otherwise, probably wouldn't have gotten mentioned out of this blog post. They also detailed a bit more in regards to incoming ADS fluidity on snipers, improvements for weapon swapping during sprint and tactical sprint, reduction of weapon motion during crouch transitions and animations, and they also mentioned that shotguns as well as a few other weapons would be upgraded and buffed so that they can keep SMGs in check and not have them be overpowered compared to other weapons in certain ranges. So nice to see. But okay, that's a few things in regards to the weapons, the new features and returning features, and some changes, but let's talk about some stuff that we can work towards that's nice to see returning here. Firstly, weapon reticles and the challenges associated with those. Those I am very excited to see. We talked about this recently, where the big thing that I love out of this is just being able to organically unlock specific reticles that I want, whether it be a blue dot, green dot, purple dot, or something like that. I genuinely hated that in Modern Warfare 2 and Modern Warfare 3, the reticles were really only available to be obtained by purchasing a blueprint for a specific optic. You couldn't take that red dot and change it then to put onto your 4 times or anything like that. And while that might not be the case, and you might have to unlock a specific, let's say, blue dot on a 4 times for that crosshair pinpoint, at least you could unlock it. In Modern Warfare 2 and Modern Warfare 3, you had to get that one attachment on a specific weapon build, and then you'd have to equip that weapon skin of that attachment any single time you wanted to use that different color optic. So obviously, not ideal, but now you want a different type of sniper crosshair, you can do a challenge for it. You want to change to a purple, green, blue dot, you have a challenge for that. That's a huge big step back to where we were before, and I think a much needed one. Obviously, weapon camos are going to be a big part of the grind here. We already talked about weapon camos so much, so I don't want to stick too far on that, but you do have camo grinds for multiplayer, zombies, and Warzone, so 12 mastery camos this year as opposed to just the 8 that you might be used to in multiplayer and zombies. Earning them is going to be a little bit different this year, where the nice part is you don't have to have any sort of weapons leveled up to start progressing. Instead, you're going to end up having a couple of different tiers to unlock, where you have the military, specials, and mastery camos. Militaries are going to be 9 challenges, usually associated with quantity of headshots earned with a specific weapon. Specials will be 2 unique challenges per weapon, so you will end up having variants there between each of those weapons. And then masteries will just be your standard masteries that you see the last 2 years, where where you have gold, you have to complete all those challenges for a single weapon. Diamond for multiplayer would be something you have to get every weapon gold in a classification of weapons. Dark Spine presents a challenge once you get every weapon class diamond, and then Dark Matter will be granted automatically once you complete the challenge for Dark Spine on every single weapon. So there's of course a lot to do here with this, and we already broke it down so much, so don't want to stay too long on that. Beyond that, wrapping up our sort of weapons deep dive, a couple of other things to know. Blueprints will permanently unlock a weapon here going forward. Now, at first glance, whenever we end up seeing the launch window here, that might not be something that is too much an issue. I think the only thing that might apply here with this is the master crafts, if they do decide to follow the same sort of unlock patterns, which now thinking about it, wouldn't make sense for them to not. So you might have those 5-6 weapons of the Ames 85, LR762, Jackal PDW, Marine SP, and the combat knife. Those might be unlocked permanently right from the get-go, but once you get to like season 1 and beyond, whenever there's a battle pass, whenever there's a shop introduced, it's mentioned blueprint and equipment skins that you may own also permanently unlock those items, including the base variation of that item. So that means when you prestige from level 1, those weapons, whatever blueprints you have, they're going to be available right from the get-go again, instead of having to re-unlock them at level 25, level 43, level 55. That's no longer going to be a requirement. So right away, it's something that I don't know how much of a concern it'll be again in those first couple of weeks, but come season 1, you'll have ample access to permanently unlock things beyond just those permanent unlock tokens for prestiging. That's something that you may or may not like to hear. I know that's something that is a non-issue for some players. Others, they're like, that's not fair at all. So wherever you fall on that spectrum, just know that's going to be how things work with this. And then the final thing I want to talk about is actually a little bit of, again, future proofing for what's to come with weapons still. Warzone weaponry and the Wildcard system, where you can end up taking Gunfighter to equip 8 attachments on your weapon. This is something that will fundamentally change in Warzone once we have the integration in Season 1. What happens to those weapons that you buy with 8 attachments versus those that are standard you can buy from the buy station that are 5 attachments? Well, your normal loadout weapons, as we mentioned before, are 2,500 just from the buy station, just that weapon. No perks, nothing like that, but just whatever the weapon build is, that's what you get. Gunfighter weapons for just 3 additional attachments jump that price up to 6,000 just for that weapon. So it's going to be one of those things that poses the question on what do you end up taking for specific loadouts? Do you end up getting a loadout and then buying an 8 attachment weapon? Do you end up taking the overkill wild card to get 2 weapons with 5 attachments and neglect any of the 8 attachments? There's a lot of different combinations that can come out of it, but it's going to be an interesting balance that I feel like isn't all that bad at first glance, but just introduces some sticker shock perhaps at the prices and the immediate change here. But I think it will absolutely shake up the meta going forward. But anyways, that's weaponry and basically all the ins and outs of things that we've seen so far since the beta and what we can look forward to still in regards to all the weapons, the new and returning features for weapons, weapon changes, some unlocks that you should be aware of, and of course, just some additional information as well. So that's where we're gonna wrap it up. Let me know your thoughts down below. What do you think of the depth to the weapon systems here that we have this year? Like the sound of it? Maybe not so much. Whatever the case, drop your thoughts down below. But if you enjoyed the video, you found it at all insightful, do me a favor, drop a like on it. And of course, if you are new to the channel, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss a single thing regarding all things Black Ops 6. Love to have in the community as we gear up for launch. But for now, thanks so much for watching. My name is Espresso. I'll see you later. Take care and peace.